You'll see this is headed complaint against SAP's allegations of corruption and defeating the ends of justice. Complainant F. Adams.
How the accused grouped themselves in a manner that sought to circumvent the processes. And by putting themselves in a specific grouping, they knew what they wanted to achieve. That is the gist of it, is they grouped themselves in a way to achieve a particular agenda, which agenda was to gratify Brigadier Mokwele with the post she was neither qualified nor had the requisite experience for, because she needed to be placed in a strategic position. And in placing her in that strategic position, it then indebted her to the accused for whatever they required in the future. And that comes in the other cases.
Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, was that, why would you want to turn this into a big case, corruption case, when it's simply about the appointment of a person within SAPS?
Lieutenant General Khumalo was not placed in cuffs because he was returning from a trip and he was at the airport. It's a public place. One didn't seek to embarrass him. And I do recall that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi indicated there was a dramatic arrest. There was no dramatic arrest. There were just two IDAC investigators. They approached him, spoke to him, and he went with, to the car.
Would you, IDAC, have had anything to do with the bail conditions that were set?
Several of our witnesses are from crime intelligence and in the employ of crime intelligence. All had indicated that they had been victimized and were intimidated. The accused, therefore, could not return to their office. It wasn't per se directed at, we don't want you to do your work. It is the state's duty to protect their witnesses. So I think it would be rather disingenuous, Chair, to say that nothing happens at CI or that they are not having any insight and input into what is going on in crime intelligence currently.
So this memo records the passage of this complaint by Honorable Adams. You'll see this is headed complaint against SAP's allegations of corruption and defeating the ends of justice. Complainant F. Adams. When did the matter relating to Lieutenant General Khumalo and the other matter that you've also mentioned, when did that land on your desk for authorization?
The matters were already authorized. So the investigations were already authorized. In December,
well, maybe I'm referring to the prosecution and then the decision.
The prosecution engagements, Honorable Chair, commenced from May. I was getting briefings at the status of some of the investigations. And what they did is they worked out for themselves which matters they are able to get ready, and it depended on how much evidence was required for that matter. So the first matter was ready, and at the end of May, first week of June, I received the prosecution memo, received a briefing from the investigation and prosecution team, as is with all of the other matters, asked the necessary questions, made sure that they were comfortable with the decision, and then engaged the Director of Public Prosecutions, as we should, for the enrollment. 2 weeks later, and that would take us to around about the end of June, that then also happened with the matter wherein Lieutenant General Khumalo and 6 others were arrested.
And he was arrested in, just remind us of the date.
It was the 26th of June. It would be AJ1, let me just be sure. It would have been the 26th of June, 2025, Chair.
26th of June, 2025. You didn't, in terms of protocol, take it upon yourself to inform the National Commissioner that one of his most senior officers was going to be arrested? Or did you follow some other protocol involved when a very senior person is involved?
Correct, Chair. The protocol I follow, since I report to and am accountable in terms of my reporting to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, I did inform the National Director that the Head of Crime Intelligence, Lieutenant General Khumalo, and others would be arrested. I do not discuss the merits of the matter with the National Director, but I did indicate that in terms of the Section 27 referral, we had worked out those matters within the ambit of the definition of state capture, but that there were individual matters that dealt across the board with fraud, corruption, and or defeating, and this matter would be enrolled. We did the same, Chair, when it was the first matter that was to be enrolled as well. So each time I inform the National Director that there's going to be a matter that appears on the roll, and that is for all matters. I do not discuss the merits of the matter because I have the discretion as the ID, as do directors of public prosecutions, to institute prosecutions for and on behalf of the state.
Did you inform the National Commissioner?
I did not. I informed the National Director.
Okay. Now, did you inform Lieutenant General Khumalo?
We didn't inform him. When he was to be apprehended, he was informed what he was being apprehended for, that IDAC was in possession of J50 warrants of arrest. We asked that, well, the investigators asked that he kindly accompany them. Lieutenant General Khumalo was not placed in cuffs because he was returning from a trip and he was at the airport. It's a public place. One didn't seek to embarrass him. One merely sought to secure his attendance. And in fact, we did that for all of the other accused. They were called and told to please hand themselves over at the Brooklyn police station. These were senior members of the police who had been in their office. If we thought there was a risk that they could flee, one would have acted differently. But at the time, we didn't have a reasonable belief that that would happen. So when he was approached, there was no obstruction from himself. He got into the vehicle with the two IDAC investigators, and at all relevant times of that trip, even till it ended at the Brooklyn police station, his entire security entourage followed and knew where he was at all times. We did afford him that respect. We wanted to secure his attendance in court. That was the bottom line. One could have executed the warrant. We had a valid warrant. That was not the purpose of the exercise. The exercise was a method of securing his attendance together with the co-accused, and we treated all of them the same. So we didn't execute warrants on some and not on others. We called and asked them to hand themselves over.
So it sounds to me that unless you knew that, firstly, this is Lieutenant General Khumalo at the airport, secondly, that he was being accompanied by other police officers and it appears to be some kind of an arrest, it wouldn't have been evident that he was being apprehended, arrested. There were no handcuffs, nothing like that.
Not at all. And I do recall that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi indicated there was a dramatic arrest. There was no dramatic arrest. There were just two IDAC investigators. They approached him, spoke to him, and he went with to the car. Even at the time of the conversations, his security detail was right there. So he never placed us in any danger. We didn't place him in any danger. We really secured the attendance of an accused in court.
A bit different from your Scorpions experience.
Honorable Chair, if one takes note of how IDAC has been operating, you will find that there hasn't been media coverage unless there was some rogue journalist who hid behind a bush that I'm not aware of, but we do not do media-style arrests. We apprehend our accused. They appear in court. Of course, once accused persons appear in court, everyone would know about it. But we sought in all of our matters to be as circumspect as we can be. If there's one lesson IDAC took from how the DSO operated and how not to operate, it was that, which is why I also was at pains to indicate, Honorable Chair, that mentioning people's names without having certainty about the criminal allegations and evidence against them would become highly irresponsible.
Subsequently, Lieutenant General Khumalo appeared in court. Yep, he would have applied for bail. Did you oppose bail?
In terms of the schedule of the offense, you had to read the bail opposition affidavits, but we had agreed to an amount of bail.
So would IDAC's own prosecutors be present in court and actually present the case
correct.
to the magistrate?
That is correct.
Okay. And would you, IDAC, have had anything to do with the bail conditions that were set by the presiding magistrate?
The investigator would depose to an affidavit. Prosecutor would read that out into the record and would ask for bail conditions. Yes, it's a prosecutor's job to deal with the bail application and bail conditions.
Now, you must please correct me if I've got it wrong, but the complaint seems to be that, or the effect of the bail conditions ultimately imposed was that Lieutenant General Khumalo and his co-accused would be prohibited from entering their offices, which effectively means that they couldn't do their job as crime intelligence officers. Just your comment on that, either if I got it right or wrong, or your comment.
The main interest we were weighing, at least the investigators and prosecutors, was the fact that several of our witnesses are from crime intelligence and in the employ of crime intelligence. And in the process of getting their statements, all had indicated that they had been victimized and were intimidated. What one sought to do, Honorable Chair, through the bail condition was prohibit the intimidation of witnesses. It had that unfortunate effect that the accused therefore could not return to their office. So we had to weigh the safety of the witnesses and the evidence that they would still have to give. So it wasn't per se directed at, we don't want you to do your work. It is the state's duty to protect their witnesses. And one of the conditions is, and we gave a list of names to the court, that these witnesses must not be contacted, etc., etc. That is normal. And part of the not going to the office was to ensure the safety of those. In fact, if you would allow me, Honorable Chair, in the one matter, the first matter, there was a time when General Lushaba went back to the office. And the witnesses were a flurry. We were inundated with calls about why were we, IDAC, so reckless about their lives that we didn't inform them. We were not aware he would go back to the office. It's not for me to comment on why he went to the office, but that was the effect of one person having gone to the office. So this is not a thumbsuck. It was the reality of witnesses who were in a very sensitive environment. And our duty is to the witness or witnesses.
So as I understand or the reason for that particular bail condition was to protect the safety of witnesses, material witnesses in the matter, in the prosecution of Lieutenant General Khumalo and others, and that they were fearing for their safety or lives, and that would be the reason barring them from entering those offices where the witnesses were. And you have one instance where one of the accused had actually gone back to the office, and it caused some, let's call it, consternation amongst some of these witnesses.
Absolutely, Honourable Chair. And we all know that they're currently in court applying for an amendment of the bail conditions. Should the court find in the favour of the accused, IDAC is going to have to decide with the National Police Commissioner, what do we do about our witnesses who find themselves in that environment? That would still be a concern. We'd have to honour the court judgment, but we have to protect our witnesses. And that would be a conversation to be had. So if the court decides against us, we'd respect the finding, but it wouldn't take away the initial reason why the condition was set or requested.
Now, this is obviously based on media reports, so you can ignore it or reject it or respond. But did they go back today to seek an amendment to their bail conditions, and did it relate to this issue of access?
That is correct, Honourable Chair. The application for the bail amendment did start some time ago. I think it started in October. But given the Madlanga Commission and the fact that Lieutenant General Khumalo had to testify, etc., the matter moved itself along, and today was the first agreed-to date for the court to continue to adjudicate. However, what also happened is, given the aspersions cast on the presiding officer who agreed to those conditions, the presiding officer decided, well, his name was being dragged through the mud, and so he would have to step down. And that caused, again, a disruption in terms of proceedings and process.
So did a new or newly appointed presiding officer, was he or she appointed today to hear the application for an amendment?
On the previous occasion, when the name of the presiding officer was made known at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, the presiding officer came into court, the original one, indicated that he would rather step down. He will also be applying to the commission to testify because of the aspersions cast on himself. There was an adjournment of the matter, and then another presiding officer was brought in to indicate that the matter is being postponed to today, and that today there would be a new presiding officer. However, the state applied for a motion application indicating that this would really waste time and is not in the interest of justice. This matter was already part heard, and that the original presiding officer who was dealing with the bail amendment should finish the matter. And that application was filed in the High Court. I'm not aware of what is happening in court at the moment. I'd be able to get feedback when we are done for the day to find out if a new presiding officer was in fact allowed to proceed, because it means everything starts from scratch, and that prejudices all the parties, state and defense included.
What consideration, if any, went into the fact that effectively our crime intelligence was now hamstrung by our top crime intelligence investigators being barred from office? They haven't been suspended from work, they haven't been dismissed, but because of a bail condition, they cannot perform their functions, which is so crucial to the criminal justice system.
What I can say, Honourable Chair and members, is they are not physically there, but they are still within the employ of SAPS. I have no doubt that they continue to work and or engage with colleagues, albeit not the witnesses that they were barred from engaging with. But crime intelligence is not hamstrung. there are acting persons that are carrying on with the job and have continued to do so, including a Major General who's acting as the Divisional Commissioner for Crime Intelligence. In all of those positions of the current accused, there are persons acting and the work continues. The National Commissioner himself has not indicated to IDAC that, unfortunately, crime intelligence, which is such a key component, cannot do its work. Rethink your stance. That has not happened.
And I suppose since COVID and so on, provided they were also barred from accessing information online, that presumably is such an important component, is having access. Obviously, they've got restricted access and passwords and stuff like that, that you and I can't access, but that remains in place.
Unless someone can tell me otherwise, I do believe it remains in place. I do believe that they, I am aware that crime intelligence officials, and this was reported to us by our witnesses, do meet with the Divisional Commissioner, Lieutenant General Khumalo. So people can leave that office. Oh. There's nothing that precludes the Divisional Commissioner from engaging his staff, from doing work, but they are acting, that notwithstanding. So it's the physical location because of the security of witnesses. So I think it would be rather disingenuous, Chair, to say that nothing happens at CI or that they are not having any insight and input into what is going on in crime intelligence currently.
So there's still physical meetings outside of the office where the witnesses or potential material witnesses are?
Yes, our witnesses have indicated that there are officials from crime intelligence, that head office, where Lieutenant General Khumalo and the co-accused have been barred from entering. Members leave that office and meet them elsewhere. They get feedback. They have engagements. And these would almost invariably are some of those who are acting. So nothing is lost. Of course, I wouldn't want to be barred from my office. And so I accept that it was an unfortunate consequence of wanting to protect the witnesses. But that was the only reason for asking that they do not report physically to that actual head office.
Thank you. Now, the criticism, I think we've read it out to you earlier from Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, was that why would you want to turn this into a big case, corruption case, when it's simply about the appointment of a person within SAPS? Now, I know that you are limited in terms of what detail you can give us, but can you give us some high-level indicators, factors that arise from the investigation into this case and which satisfied you, obviously it must have satisfied you, that there are reasonable prospects of a successful prosecution for corruption and fraud in this matter? There's been some interference with your microphone.
Advocate. Yeah, no, we just wanted to bring it to, I think that your mic was off.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe it's that part of the afternoon. Although I know I'm going to be here long hours. So when we get to the affidavit, Honorable Chair and members, we have discussed from page 13, paragraph 33, about the allegations against Lieutenant General Khumalo and his co-accused, why we thought in paragraph 37 that looking at the cumulative effect of the Section 27 referrals from Mr. Adams, that they amounted to state capture, and then delved into the individual matter. And so in terms of the individual matter, we indicate in terms of AJ1, which is attached here too. And I think if the Chair and members would allow me.
AJ1 is the charge sheet.
The charge sheet. The charge sheet, AJ1, if... you know, charge sheets like a lot of English, but if one goes to, at the bottom of the page, it says page 7, the top of the page is paragraph 12. But if one goes through page 7, page 8, up to the top of page 9, which stops at 12.15, which is why I chose to attach the charge sheet, sets out in essence. Sorry, Chair.
Advocate Johnson, just, well, for me too, and for the honourable members, there is AJ1 starts with what is called the charge sheet.
Yes.
But then it's
all the court appearances.
Then there's
and bail receipts.
And then there's another
document
that
says charge sheet.
Yes.
That is the document, sorry, Chair, that
which names the accused and which gives a summary
of the charges.
Yeah, and when you refer to the pages, it's at the bottom.
It is at the bottom of that document.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. And it is attached so that it indicates throughout the document who the accused are. It sets out the provisions of the Corruption Act, but more pertinently then, from page 7 up to the top of page 9, Honourable Chair and members, it sets out what the state alleges that the accused collectively did and did not do. And what it talks to is non-compliance with, at paragraph 12.3, the National SAPS instruction in summary 11 of 2017, which deals with appointments to posts in the SMS, where it sets out appropriate managerial experience, competence, and suitable, which means suitability of candidate, amongst other relevant factors to be considered by the selection panels. 12.4, that the selection panel was chosen by accused 1, and it comprised of accused 1, which is Lieutenant General Khumalo, as the chairperson, and other panel members, which were the co-accused. And if we can go to paragraph 12.7, so that I don't waste time, it was discovered that accused 1 and 5 accused 5 being one Sydney Zwelithini Gabela, and I can mention the name only because it is there in the charge sheet, which is a public document, are well known to each other, as is evident because accused 1, in applying for his security clearance, had the person as a reference. And we say that so that throughout you are able to see how the accused grouped themselves in a manner that sought to circumvent the processes. And by putting themselves in a specific grouping, they knew what they wanted to achieve. They knew which person they wanted must get the post, and that is what the witnesses will tell us. 12.8, accused 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, acting in concert, shortlisted 5 candidates, 2 who were from within TSS, which is the crime intelligence environment, 3 from outside SAPS. And then they seek to do a few things, and I'll only mention 1 or 2, but accused 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 made misrepresentations about some of the candidates' knowledge, skill, and experience, and misrepresented in their report for the recommendations that all 5 candidates meet the requirements of the post. In fact, at 12.12, accused 7 submitted false and misleading information in her application and curriculum vitae. And 12.13, Misrepresentations were also made by the accused with regards to the vetting application by accused number 7, resulting in her getting a security clearance she was not qualified to get. And at 12:14, accused 1 to 6 abused the authority vested in them by willfully disregarding and not complying with the SAP's National Instruction 10 of 2017, and in concert awarded a gratification as per the definition of gratification in the Corruption Act, which talks to a form of employment, to accused 7 in the form of employment without just and reasonable cause at the expense of other duly qualified, experienced, and skilled senior officers of SAPS. So when the panel was put together...
And just for the record, this is a public document, and obviously Lieutenant General Khumalo and all the other accused, they're in possession of this document. They know exactly what
that is correct.
The charges and the basis for the charges are.
That is correct, and that's the only reason I am able to read what I read into the record. And to then perhaps surmise that that is the gist of it, is they group themselves in a way to achieve a particular agenda, which agenda was to gratify Brigadier Mokwele with the post she was neither qualified nor had the requisite experience for, because she needed to be placed in a strategic position. And in placing her in that strategic position, it then indebted her to the accused for whatever they required in the future. And that comes in the other cases in terms of the other investigations that we are continuing to investigate.
What role would that person play if appointed?
So that
within
person
crime
would be
intelligence?
the head of the technical services. And the technical services is quite an important program for crime intelligence. It is where all covert work is done, where instructions for interception and monitoring goes through, where the procurement of devices, listening devices, interception devices are procured. The big procurement items happen here. And so you would need someone here who is not going to question you for that which you want to do. And it wasn't so previously in terms of, well, let me backtrack. Not to the knowledge of IDAC was someone previously in this position that was able to be compliant with what any divisional commissioner would have wanted. In all of the investigations, Honorable Chair, TSS has not been the subject of any criminal investigations done either in my time at the DSO, my broader time with the NPA, or even at IDAC till this matter. They really remained a very closed, covert technical environment.
Yeah. Now, let's get back to the information note now that we have that background and context which resulted in the arrest of Lieutenant General Khumalo and his co-accused and their appearance in court. From the information note, you'll see that there were allegations that arose from the complaint by Mr. Adams, a Member of Parliament, but then there's also a complaint about the averment that the Division Inspectorate irregularly handed over 7 dockets to the Investigating Directorate, IDAC. Were you aware that there was such a complaint?
No, Chair. What had happened is, when we received the referral, we needed to find the dockets. Hence, I indicated I wrote to Divisional Commissioner Lieutenant General Sentumule. We also informed her that we had heard, but had no confirmation, that these dockets were with the inspectorate. In fact, General Sentumule indicated, but why would they be there? And I said, General, I don't have answers. Kindly indicate whether or not we can access those dockets or get those dockets. General Sentumule did respond, and the dockets were handed over from the inspectorate they were handed over to IDAC. And if you look at the document, Honourable Chair, that Council referred me to, I mean the document Council referred me to had a report from Lieutenant General Jacobs. If I could just find my place.
You're looking for the end of the first information note?
Yes.
Yeah, you're looking for the conclusion.
The conclusion.
That is signed off at, it's about 5-6 pages.
But the gist of it, as I have in my recollection to the National Commissioner, he says there was nothing untoward in the obtaining of the documents,
And where is that?
in the obtaining of, I correct myself, Honourable Sangoni, in the obtaining of the dockets from the inspectorate.
Yeah.
I just want to find
That's the conclusion. Yeah.
That is his, and that is the person who had those dockets.
In fact,
And I
Mr.
did
Noon,
find it, if I may. It says,
there is actually, yeah, this first information note, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, is a summary of other documents that's annexed to this note. And if you, there's a document, it's in my bundle, it's marked page 289, Annexure 3. So it's about 10, 11, 12 pages from the
got it. Okay. Sorry, Chair, the one you refer to now is
289 at the top right, marked Annexure 3, SCS 20/11/2024.
I have that.
Information note to the Divisional Commissioner, Legal Services, because this matter was referred on advice by the National Commissioner to Legal Services, and then there's input here from Lieutenant General Jacobs on the 20th of November relating to the complaint, and it's for legal advice, for an legal opinion of criminal dockets opened by the complainant. And you'll see a summary there that he opened in the background section 3 criminal dockets in Cape Town Central SAPS, but has learned that, quote, there has been interference from the SAPS provincial office. He thereafter opened 3 criminal dockets at Orlando SAPS, Gauteng, but it's also learned that there's been interference from the SAPS provincial office. The National Commissioner has instructed that the report is provided in terms of the allegations that the SAPS is derailing the criminal allegations levelled by the complainant. A report was compiled wherein the allegation that there has been interference from both provincial offices and were reported to be unfounded. It was also reported that this office is in possession of the 6 dockets opened by the complainant. And then the memo discusses these claims. The criminal allegations in the 6 cases which are opened are levelled against Lieutenant General Khumalo, Major General Lushaba, Major General Madondo, and Brigadier Ngube, and are centered on 4 specific matters, namely abuse of the Secret Services account, cover-up of a criminal incident linked to Valeria, failure to address Major General Madondo's results of the polygraph examination, wherein 2 incidents of tax evasion were uncovered, practices of nepotism. Then paragraph 3.3, as part of the protocols to address service complaints, an affidavit is obtained from the complainant, Colonel Philip of this office was tasked to obtain the affidavit. However, after numerous attempts, it seems as if the complainant is evading the request. That's now a reference to
Mr. Adams.
Honourable Member Adams. Then there's a recommendation, and a recommendation due to the sensitive nature of the allegations, which has been widely announced by the complainant. It is imperative that before any criminal investigation is launched, your office peruse the affidavits to provide a legal opinion on whether the elements of the crime exist and advise on the way forward. So that was on the 20th of November 2011. Then if we come back to the information note at the front, we'll see the role of the inspectorate is discussed on the second page. The findings of the service complaint investigation, those are the 4 dockets, the one in the 4 of Orlando, opened in Orlando, sorry, 3 Cape Town, 4 Cape Town dockets, case numbers. And then again at 4.2, various attempts were made to conduct an interview with Mr. Fadiel Adams, MP, but due to the complainant's schedule, no appointment could be secured. The purpose of the requested appointment was to obtain an affidavit in terms of the allegations and determine if information alluded to in the affidavits contained criminal dockets, in the criminal dockets, was in possession of the complainant. Colonel Phillips submitted an affidavit to support the attempts made to secure the appointments. Then a report was compiled. Then at 4.4, the 6 above-mentioned dockets were provided to the Division Legal Services to provide a legal opinion on whether the elements of crime exist and advise on the way forward. Then at 4.5, an extract of the report received from Legal Services indicated the current information contained in the dockets is scanty and too vague to formulate charges against any suspects. As a result, Legal Services is unable to confirm that the required elements of any offence are contained in the docket. Then in Annexure 4, which is also at page 293 for those who have the paginated bundle. It's 293 Annexure 4. Have you got it there?
I do, Chair.
And this legal opinion is dated the 11th of December 2024. Quite a few things happened in December 2024. But so you'll see, and right at the end on page 296, paragraph 13, the current information contained in the dockets is scanty and too vague to formulate charges against any suspects. As a result, Legal Services is unable to confirm that the required elements of any offence are contained in the dockets. So just at random, I'm sure honourable members will pick up on some of the detail. For example, at 3.4 on page 294, no details are provided regarding the identity of the friends and family members of Lieutenant General Khumalo who were allegedly appointed in the division. This would at least have enabled the investigation into the allegations. Neither the particulars or statements of senior members of the service who were allegedly instructed to ensure that Valeria case number so-and-so is not investigated, nor the statement of a sex worker are filed in these dockets. In Cape Town case number 1651 and Valeria case 403, the complainant alleges that Major General Madondo failed a polygraph examination in July 2024, whereafter the head of vetting, Brigadier Dineo, was tasked to ensure that the matter would not be addressed or investigated. The complainant does not reveal the identity of the person who allegedly tasked Brigadier Dineo not to invest the failed polygraph. And so it goes on and results then in the conclusion that is reached. And if we then go back to the front to the information note, we'll see that that following a process followed that the matter shouldn't go any further. Advocate Johnson, so one, your response, there appears to have been some parallel investigation, and two, that investigation contrasts markedly with the IDAC investigation, and it records that there seems to be no basis to proceed any further into the allegations of the Honourable Mr. Adams. I suppose an immediate concern would be that they also failed to secure him for an interview, and the opinion seems to be based squarely on what was contained in the dockets, and they say the information was scanty and so on.
So, Chair, the IDAC was not aware of these processes that I alluded to in the entire MK15 and all of its annexures and attachments. Because when IDAC requested the dockets through the Office of Lieutenant General Sentomule, if this, and I'm not saying that this didn't happen, what would have made sense if IDAC was informed that they should please wait, there is a process to deal with this matter, given that there is a complaint that has been escalated to the Office of the National Commissioner. Of course, we would have waited. We were not informed that there was a process to look at the allegations and or the unhappiness of Mr. Adams. Not at all. The dockets were handed over. And it is so. Those dockets, in all likelihood, in the form that they were in at the South African Police Services, were scanned. And they were unable to apply, or well, they applied their minds, but could not come up with the requisite criminal charges. I'm not disputing that. But that must be borne out by the fact that for whatever reason, and the attempts they made, or the kinds of attempts they made, Honourable Chair, they did not secure an audience with Mr. Adams. IDAC was able to secure an audience with Mr. Adams when he referred the matter in terms of Section 27. IDAC was able to sit with him, to take his affidavit, and to fully understand the allegations that he was making. That was an opportunity the police did not get. I accept that if they got that opportunity and were asked for that opportunity and went ahead with it, there's a real likelihood those cases would not have ended up in the IDAC space because the police would have done their work. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying we were not aware of that process. And I would, honestly, in fairness to the colleagues at SEPS, one would have expected them to bring it to IDAC's attention, that they were vested in dealing with this complaint.
Honorable Sangoni.
Sorry, can I just confirm what is the date that on which Mr. Adams referred the matter to IDAC, firstly, and then secondly, the charge against accused 1 to 6. I know that 7 has an additional charge of corruption. 1 to 6. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, if I may just ask for clarity, Honorable Sangoni, you are asking in terms of the referral made by Adams, what were the allegations he made against those accused?
No, the date on which he made the referral. Thanks.
I speak under correction, and when we get a break, I'll get the exact date, but it would have been between the 11th and the 20th of November.
What is General Khumalo charged with?
In the charge sheet which is attached, General Khumalo is charged with corruption for the gratification of the employment position, and then there are fraud charges as well that are preferred against the general and the accused.
Honorable Mngango, Honorable Skwasana.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good afternoon, Advocate. I'm just wanting to get some clarity here that the information contained in the annexure document actually gives us a process that actually had been undertaken by the police after they had actually received is it the dockets? I don't know whether the dockets from Mr. Adams. So it actually outlines the processes. Now, in the evidence here that is presented to us, the documents are actually reported to have disappeared. In the light of what actually is contained here, would you still say that the documents had disappeared?
Sorry, Chair, I seek clarity. I'm just slightly confused about what documents do you refer to, Honourable Member?
I mean I don't know whether it is, you guys call it dockets.
The dockets, Honourable Member.
Yes,
Yes.
Dockets, yes. In your statement, in your evidence in chief, you are actually saying that those dockets were missing. Nobody knew where they were. And then here in this annexure, the annexure is actually outlining the process that indeed these dockets were being attended to in November and right up to December. So my question is, would you still maintain that the dockets had disappeared, as you have actually said in your evidence?
Thank you, Honourable Member. What is in my affidavit is what is reported to us by Mr. Adams, that he had opened cases in the Western Cape, those dockets disappeared. I used the words that the person used, that he opened dockets in Gauteng and they disappeared. What I did say in an earlier response just now was, IDAC was not aware of the process that was followed as per MK15. So, how these got there, we are not aware. But what we did become aware of is, when he came to Gauteng, we asked the Divisional Commissioner Detectives that we would like to know if these dockets are there and can we have access to those dockets. Given that they were then, as I now know, were busy with these, of course they had those dockets. But we didn't know where those dockets were, and the witness, Mr. Adams, the complainant, sorry, indicated that the dockets were missing. When those dockets were handed to us, we were handed dockets with Valeria CARES numbers and one Langlachta CARES number, and those were the dockets that we then had. But those were the dockets that they had and gave to us. We didn't know that they had them, till we wrote and asked for them, but that is what he said, Honourable Member, that the dockets were missing.
Through you, Chair, should we actually believe that the dockets were missing or had disappeared? Should we actually be still saying that the dockets had disappeared?
Honourable Member, I give it from the context of what was referred to us and what the complainant indicated. When we had the dockets, we can no longer say the dockets are not there. Those are the dockets that we were given by the head of detectives. So in his initial report, he said the dockets are missing. So when we were given the later information, we were able to ask for. So no, we can't say the dockets are still missing. We now have the dockets because the head of detectives provided us with those dockets.
Ola and then Matthijs.
Thanks, Chair. In the same docket kind of questioning. Mr. Adams opens a case in Cape Town. 2 days later, Mr. Adams opens a case in Gauteng. When did he lodge a complaint with IDAC? And when did IDAC receive the dockets? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Ngola. He referred the matter to IDAC in the middle of November, and IDAC only requested and received the dockets after that. I indicated when we take a break, I will make sure that I get a copy of that letter written to General Sentomole to indicate that we were requesting the dockets. So he registered dockets. When you look at the CARES numbers, they say CARES something stroke 10. So he registered his dockets in October, but he only approached IDAC in the middle of November, and we got the dockets after the referral.
So Mr. Adams' evidence is that in month end October, he registered cases, but already, which is a probably about 17 days, 15 days, his evidence is that dockets were missing in between those days.
That is what he referred.
Okay.
Honourable Matthijs.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate, it's a bit bizarre that you don't have the exact dates even in your affidavit, or in your statement rather, but we have here the 29th of October was when Honourable Adams opened the case in Western Cape. Then it's the 31st of October when he travelled to Gauteng. Then on the 1st, he writes to the minister, and then you get a letter on the 11th of November. So it's all in a space of 14 days. Does that make sense to you?
So
14 days that you landed up with you to intervene.
Honourable Chair and Member, I understand what you're saying. On the face of it, it looks as though things were rushed. We cannot determine the sequence that he chose to follow. But when he did come to IDAC to refer the matter, we dealt with the matter at the time. Okay. I accept that it doesn't look kosher, but that is what he did. I cannot comment on why he followed the timeline that he did. And that is why I go back to, if the police had indicated they were running a process as per MK15, we would have stood back and allowed that process to run. It was not in our interest to be running with the matter while they ran with the matter.
So the question wasn't so much, wasn't talking so much about the process of Adams, of Honourable Adams. It's about that when you finally got hold of it, that this happened so quickly. So that just didn't raise any awareness that within 14 days you have something, and the fact that he said dockets are missing and they actually weren't missing.
I take the point, Honourable Matthijs. I can't differ from your answer, except we received a complaint, we acted on the complaint in the time that we acted on the complaint.
Honorable Sangon.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Advocate Johnson, would the affidavit that Mr. Honorable Adams would have had to depose as part of the Section 27, would that be a public document? Would we be able to be furnished with that document?
If the chair can put his...
Yeah, respond to the question and then we'll go to the next.
Your microphone is on, so I couldn't
Okay.
press the... Sorry, Chair. The document is not a public document. If it was, I would have brought the document with it. It forms part of the investigation and forms part of that process. It's not a document that has been disclosed.
Can I follow up, Chair? So this matter is in court. Would it not be part of the court papers and therefore a public document?
They aren't part of the court papers.
Honorable Malim, are you fine? Okay. SC, I think we are ready to proceed.
Thank you. Advocate Johnson, did you have any interaction during the course of 2024, after July 2024, and in particular around November 2024, December 2024, with Minister Mkhwanazi and or his Chief of Staff?
Not that I can recall. I hadn't had an engagement.
Not that you can recall, or is it possible that you may have?
I remember that, not with Minister Mkhwanazi, no. I don't, no, I hadn't spoken to his Chief of Staff, not from my own recollection.
And the only contact, is it your evidence, the only contact you had with Minister Mkhwanazi's office was that letter you received from Chief of Staff in Kabinde?
There had been occasion to, for IDAC to write to the minister. There had been a complaint from his Chief of Staff about a member of IDAC. And as the head of IDAC, we asked the Chief of Staff that the allegation he makes is serious. He must depose to an affidavit or a statement so that that matter can be referred to be investigated. That was the level of engagement. The Chief of Staff sought not to engage. He refused to depose to an affidavit. And what the ID did was write a letter to the Minister of Police, Minister Mkhwanazi, indicating its displeasure that the Chief of Staff raises an issue with one of its investigators directly with the ID, refuses to make a statement. It is an issue of integrity of the investigator and of IDAC, and that can this matter please be dealt with, and can he kindly implore on the Chief of Staff who made these allegations to please depose to an affidavit. The Minister never replied to me, and to date the Chief of Staff also did not depose to a statement where he made allegations against one of the investigators at IDAC. That would have been the most engagement I had with them.
Did you have any interaction with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi during that period?
November, December?
No, yeah, in 2024, and especially towards the end of the year, November, December.
No. I'm sure that after the referral by Mr. Adams, my investigators, over the course of the investigations, did engage with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. I did not. The only time I did engage was then now in 2025, when the General himself had called me about assisting with something. And the last conversation with him was on the 2nd of July, 2025.
The 7th of July?
Was on the 2nd to
The 2nd.
July, 2025.
And what was that about?
Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi had called. He indicated that there is someone he knows at Correctional Services in KZN, and can I kindly engage with the person? There is something that they want to report or raise. He says, I don't know the details. I indicated, General, kindly send us the contact details so that IDAC can engage. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi on a WhatsApp sent the contact details of the person that he was requesting we make contact, IDAC make contact with. I said, not a problem, General, we will deal with it. He said, thank you, sent me a picture with the police salute, and that was it. I didn't, nor did my office, in terms of the investigators. We didn't get an opportunity to engage because once the media expose of the 6th of July, I paused to wonder why we were asked to make contact with this person. And I've subsequently learned that that person is in fact subject to investigations for corruption. So at the time, I didn't know who it was. After the 6th July expose, I sought to look and find out who this person is that we were being asked to contact, given the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi about IDAC and the ID.
So just explain to us, what is the connection between this person that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi wants you to make contact with and his involvement in a corruption case? Is it a case that you were investigating as IDAC, or a case that the police was investigating?
Honorable Chair, I had no idea who the person was. General only indicated that this person had an issue that he wanted to discuss or escalate. He said, I'm not sure of what the issue is. I asked him to send me the contact details. We didn't speak to the person, but after the 6th July expose, I sought to look at who is this person we were supposed to contact, and it turns out that this is a person implicated in corruption.
But what case of corruption?
So this is a person that is implicated in the in allegations of corruption with Bosasa in his time as the Correctional Services Commissioner for KwaZulu-Natal. That is the allegation.
The Zondo Bosasa or some
The
other
Zondo
Bosasa?
Bosasa, yes.
And he wanted you to contact that person?
Yes, but what he wanted, I don't know that he knew, I want to be honest. I really don't know if he knew what the person was going to say. I don't know if he knew what the person is involved in. I cannot make that kind of deduction. But after the 6th July media expose, I sought to step back because I couldn't understand why he would have talked to me on the 2nd of July, yet went ahead and made the allegations he made as he did on the 6th of July. I sought to step back from that matter.
So I don't think it's rocket science to deduce that you must have been quite shocked when you heard his allegations on the 6th of July, having had contact with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi on the 2nd of July, actually asking you to do something.
That is correct, Chair.
Now, just going back to the legal opinion that was provided to the National Commissioner, it was also dated 11 December 2024. And it's clear from here that they say obviously Honourable Adams' allegations are scanty and so on, but they do say it requires to be properly investigated and prosecuted. However, it also requires that resources should not be wasted and suspects should not be subjected to persecution based on unsubstantiated allegations. They acknowledged the seriousness of the allegations. They said, while these allegations made by the complainant are serious in nature, they are unsubstantiated at this stage. The complainant's statements can be described as vague accusations rather than an account of factual details that fall within the complainant's personal knowledge. And then they say the current information in the dockets is scanty and too vague to formulate charges against any suspects. As a result, legal service is unable to confirm the required elements of any offence. Any offence are contained in the dockets. But subsequently, you or IDAC, the investigators, did engage with the allegations, obviously interviewed witnesses, gathered further information, and they presumably satisfied that there's a case to answer.
It is correct, Chair, insofar as the 2 cases that are now enrolled. The other cases must still be assessed once those investigations are complete, and I cannot tell this House that there would be sufficient evidence or insufficient evidence. We'd have to adjudicate those matters on the evidence based on the investigations. So what would happen with those cases, I am unable to indicate. Unlike with the first 2, we were able to finish those investigations because they were much easier in terms of the allegations. The other allegations are a bit more in-depth and need a lot more investigation than what was in the 2 initially enrolled cases.